Hello there. This is Stephen Lurie. I'm with B2B Rocks. Today is December 20th. Hold on, let me switch screens here. Always behind on here. It's December 20th. Hopefully, most of your Christmas shopping is done, or at least you have a good idea of what you're going to be doing. Or maybe you're not even going to do Christmas this year and just going to do something more ecological. That's fine. That's great. Hey, oh, wow. Oh, I got a friend who just came in, so just want to say welcome, D. Good to see you there. Um, I'm really excited today. I used to work in the IoT industry, so this show is a little bit of a treat for me, as well as hopefully for some of our audience as well. Um, I have a guy here who is pretty well known in the IoT industry and always has interesting comments about what's going on here. And this is a great opportunity for me to pick his brain. So with that, let me introduce Afzal. Afzal, I hope I pronounced that correctly. Maybe
Yeah,
it'll help
correct.
me here.
Thanks.
Hold
Perfect.
on. Oh, let me bring you up. Afzal, did I pronounce that right?
Yeah, it's perfect. Thanks, Steve.
Good. Um, so I mentioned I used to work in IoT. You currently work in IoT, correct?
Yeah, that's correct. I'm
Who,
still surviving.
you're still surviving.
Yeah.
He's a survivor. Who do you work for? Tell us about your role.
So just a question which I actually had to ask earlier already, and I'm sorry for that. Do we only have people listening or also people watching?
There are people watching you right now.
Okay, great. Okay, then I keep my
Yeah.
camera on.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey guys, my name is Afzal, and thanks for having me here, Steve. So what I'm doing is I'm heading a platform and a team which is known as IoTcreators.com. And it is part of a bigger organization known as Deutsche Telekom. And some of you might know it as T-Mobile instead of Deutsche Telekom.
Okay.
Yeah, that's where I am.
Okay. Deutsche Telekom, T-Mobile's their US brand, right?
Yeah. Actually, the T in T-Mobile stands for telecom. And
Okay.
everyone in Germany, because the headquarter of Deutsche Telekom is in Germany, of course, and everyone in Germany knows Deutsche Telekom as telecom. Yeah.
Okay. So here's our launch thing. So what does IoT Creators do? What do you do exactly at IoT Creators?
So we do two things. The first thing that we do, maybe the most important thing today, is helping companies getting started with IoT development,
Mhm.
and especially those companies who need cellular connectivity. Because you can also deploy an IoT solution on Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, and non-cellular connectivity. But if you need the operator's network and you want to start small, we are there to help you. And the second
Okay.
thing is for those companies who are scaling and they want to manage their devices, monitor the uptime, improve the performance, update the firmware. They can also do that in our platform.
Okay. Really interesting. Um, First of all, about IoT, I don't know when the original predictions came out, but years ago, PricewaterhouseCoopers, like all these different analyst groups came out, Gartner came out and said that the world would soon be populated with a crazy number of IoT devices. It hasn't been anything like what company or what these analysts predicted. What happened?
What
Or what
happened?
didn't happen?
I think that yeah, what did happen? Yeah, it's what I said before, right? A lot is happening in IoT, and a lot is not happening today.
Oh,
So I think that everyone um, overestimating the potential. Is overestimating the potential on short term of IoT,
mm,
and everyone is underestimating the effort that needs to be done
yeah.
in order to adapt IoT transformation. And I have to admit that I made the same mistake, but I've failed and learned very fast. It was um, I started in IoT in this industry in 2017, and together with some other amazing people, I was asked by the board of T-Mobile Netherlands to introduce a platform in order to sell connectivity for IoT use cases. And I mean, we are already connecting devices with SIM cards for decades, right? Like
Hmm.
less systems in retail, cars, telematics. But in 2017, with the birth of two new technologies, narrowband IoT and LTM, for those IoT devices that need to stay alive on a battery for more than 10 years, we needed new technologies. Yeah, so in 2017, we had the pleasure at T-Mobile Netherlands to launch these networks. And the moment that we launched, let's call it the early access network, because in 2017 we didn't commercialize it yet. So we launched the early access network, and thousands of people, not only from the Netherlands but also people outside the Netherlands, they traveled to the Netherlands to use the network, to test it for prototyping. So they came to me, they asked for test SIM cards, and everyone was super excited. Everyone said, yeah, we are going to do 10,000 of devices in the next 3 years. We are going to do 100,000 of devices in the next 2 years. Very ambitious. And I believed it. I was that enthusiastic as well. But what I've learned after 2 years is that most projects after the pilot phase, they get stuck. And
Yeah.
if you look on LinkedIn or if you Google for IoT articles, you will read and you will come across a lot of articles and maybe podcasts and videos where people say it gets stuck because of security. It gets stuck because of the business case. It's getting stuck because they didn't choose the right connectivity, yeah, or they didn't choose the right hardware. But in my opinion, and this is what I learned, yeah, when I failed in 2018, was that the reason why most of the projects get stuck is because people are not able to change. Most of the people are not willing to change. Yeah, a very, very tangible example, and I use this a lot, is the heating boiler. Yeah,
Hmm.
in countries with low temperatures, we have heating boilers in all our buildings and houses, right? Our homes. Yeah, and if you look at the Western Europe, we have a big problem when it comes to finding mechanics, engineers who can maintain and install these heating boilers. Yeah,
Sure.
so there is scarcity on the market. Yeah, so the problem of the installation company of heating boilers is two-sided today. On one hand, they are wasting time by sending the few people that they have to drive across the country just to do yearly checks, and 9 out of the 10 times they find out that nothing is wrong with the heating boiler. And every
Oh,
time they can install a new heating boiler in a new building, they have to say no because they don't have people. Yeah, so they're
okay.
losing money and they are missing out on more profit. Yeah.
Okay.
So um, um, there is an app for that, and there is a device for that, because there is a company, and the company is called InSmart. They made a device which is heating boiler agnostic, and they did pilots with 10 installation companies here in Europe. And what happened after the pilot, the successful pilot? The CEO said, "Hey, the business case, it's proven, the technology is proven, there is more profit, we are reducing our costs. This is amazing. We should have it." But then the sales director comes in and he says, "Yeah,
Okay.
but we are already selling these heating boilers as is for 3 decades, and we don't want to sell IT. We didn't study networking or computer technology. We don't want to sell software on top of the heating boiler. We don't want to
Yeah.
learn new stuff." The customer service manager says, "Yeah, but now our phone conversation
Oh, shoot. Looks like we just. Hopefully, he's gonna come back here for a second.
I need to That was
Afzal, we lost you.
are you can you still hear me?
Yeah, I lost you for about 10 seconds.
Okay. Okay, so um, what I said is that with a device that measures every 15 minutes the status of a heating boiler, the problem is solved, right? I mean, you don't have to send your very few people on the road to drive to customers just to check if everything is all right. You can
Right.
you can save those people from useless how do you say that, useless customer visits to install new heating boilers in new buildings and earn more profit, right?
Simply put, you can use your resources better.
Yeah, you can put, yeah, exactly. Yeah. So now you could say that, okay, the business case, it's proven, the technology works, so let's scale up. Yeah, let's implement this on all our heating boilers. But there is a lot of resistance in the organization. Yeah, the guy from security will say to the CEO, yeah, we like the solution, but it's not secure enough. The sales director said, yeah, we didn't study to sell software. We are only used to sell heating boilers. We're not qualified to sell software, and we're not willing to reskill. And the customer service manager says, yeah, but I don't have a sales team, I have a service team. So if we don't have service calls anymore, because now we can predict when a heating boiler needs service, then I need to reskill my team, and no one is willing to reskill. Yeah, even worse. Yeah, there is a municipality here in the Netherlands, small city, and they have few dozens of water meters, non-smart water meters, dump water meters, non-connected. And there is one guy who earns around 120K per year. That's his year salary. And he's 63. So in a couple of years, he's going to retire. His full-time job is, or let's say 10 hours per week, is driving around on his bicycle to measure the water levels and water quality. Yeah. And the other 30 hours per week, he's somehow reporting on those 10 hours. That's his full-time job, yes?
Right.
So 120K per year. Now, this municipality smart city director is her job title. She is now able to buy a device or some devices, 13,000 euros one-off, and then the job is done for the next 5 years. 13,000 euros for 5 years versus 120K for 5 years. You know what she literally said to me? Yeah, you know what? I like the solution, but this guy, I don't want to take his job away from him because he's going to retire in 4 years.
Yeah.
So I said, okay, yeah, fair enough, but he can rescale and solve another problem in the city, right?
Yeah.
And then she said, she was honest about it. She didn't say it's not secure enough or it doesn't comply to our legal guardrails, that kind of stuff. She was very honest. She said, you know what? If I tell him that he needs to do other stuff in this last phase of his career, he will show a lot of resistance, and I'm not super eager to fight that fight with him. So let's just leave stuff as it is. So that was a very long answer to your question, Steve. But this is
so. It sounds like, in addition to all the other challenges, there's businesses and human challenges just about changing processes and organizational change.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's interesting. Just an anecdote. One time I was on a plane flight with a software executive, and he showed me a framed letter he kept in his bag, and he was working at Kodak, and he said, "Watch out for digital cameras. They're coming for our market." And he framed the email where his team mocked him and said, "Digital camera is right." And he no longer worked at Kodak, and Kodak really no longer existed as a company either. I mean, they still sell film, but like just a touch of what they did. So do you think this is temporary? Do you think this is going to change the organizational challenges, or do you think as we see more adoption that'll change? Or
that's the the magic question, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I hope that it will change soon, as soon as possible, of course, because the earlier the better, the sooner the better. But it's still, every time when a company that wants to adopt IoT transformation, when they approach a consultancy or a system integrator with the question, can you help me adopting IoT transformation? Then they always start with a business case. Yeah, they always start with a business case. And what is a business case? It's just the research of feasibility, right? This is what we are going to invest. This is the return. But in my opinion, it's not the right way to start IoT transformation, because I think that in the first phase of IoT transformation, the HR manager of the company should be part of the project. Everyone in the organization needs to have a very strong personal development plan that says that you're going to reskill and this is what you are going to do in the future because this makes you happy, this makes you excited, and this makes you grow. Yeah. The moment that you achieved something like that in your organization, everyone or most of the people will be eager to shift to their new job and tasks. And everyone will contribute in making this business case feasible. Yeah. And today, I think, if there are 1,000 or no 10,000 IoT projects going on, I think only one out of those 10,000 is taking into account the HR part. So I think that it will take another 20 or 30 years before people will be ready to adopt these kind of transformations.
Well, I latch on to something you said early on, which is, the benefits appear, really important initially, but they're harder to measure than we think. And also, but the solutions themselves are really complicated and require a lot of cross-organizational thinking. And even just to bring together a solution is really complicated. I want to talk a little bit about the different types of IoT. So you mentioned devices with 10-year lifespans. And that's type of IoT is one that has what I think one of the most interesting potentials for like water and electricity and different applications, these industrial applications out in the field where it's not a factory. And literally this is linked to the UN sustainability goals, and there's lots of important things. Countries like Australia right now are using IoT and newer networks to basically manage their water resources better, which is, depending on how we see it, either the driest continent or country in the world. So it's pretty important that they manage water. So there's a lot of efficiency that they're looking to get at. This is really important, but it's really hard to do. It's really challenging to put that to do. That's 2022, I think, was kind of a pivotal year for a lot of reasons. There was a lot of evolution in connectivity. So you were talking about SIM connectivity. So we had 2G and 3G. Then we had a later entry from France, Sigfox, which was a connectivity option. Is Sigfox still in business? Are they still around?
Yeah, I think they are still around. They are everywhere. They're still everywhere, and they're growing.
Okay.
I can see it around me, especially in the tracking and logistics.
Tracking and logistics.
Yeah, they're adding a lot of value. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so that was one of the things that was started in French tech.
Yeah.
Then we had another thing, LoRaWAN, which was kind of similar to a cellular network, but usually private networks. And LoRaWAN, it kind of blew up, and we see LoRaWAN networks in a lot of places around the world. And LoRaWAN provides data, and you don't have to use. You have very low electricity consumption. I think it uses very little electricity to get the data. And NB-IoT, this is kind of a big year for NB-IoT, which is part of 5G, which is often like a lot of people are scared of 5G, but part of 5G is LTE and NB-IoT, what Afzal was talking about. And this has kind of been the year of NB-IoT, and we've seen 5 NB-IoT networks around the world. Is NB-IoT finally mature?
No, it's not. It's not mature enough. I mean, it's mature enough to deploy certain use cases. Yeah, very limited amount of use cases. And look, for the people listening and watching, I'm not a narrowband IoT hater and a LoRaWAN lover. I love both.
Yeah.
And I even have to emphasize that I benefit more financially in my business from narrowband IoT than LoRaWAN. Yeah, so I really have a personal interest in narrowband IoT. Yeah. So it's not mature enough if you compare it to LoRaWAN. And when we talk about maturity, usually in technology, we always talk about the scalability of the technology, the fact whether there are still a lot of teething problems or not. Yeah, but I see it a little bit different because every technology has its own problems. And even after fixing all the teething problems, you will always stumble upon new problems. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the thing what makes a technology mature, in my opinion, is the ecosystem or the community around the technology. And if you look at LoRaWAN, the community, it's huge. And there is a lot of consensus. There is only one way to do it. You want to install street lighting, you want to develop the device from scratch. This is how you do it. This is the set of rules. You want to install parking sensors. This is how you do it. Yeah, this is how you make sure that your battery will not drain. And the knowledge on how to do it, it's publicly available. Yeah, it's transparent. With narrowband IoT, it's different, because narrowband IoT is a technology that is being offered by very traditional companies, operators, where I'm coming from, semiconductors. They usually wait for a very big fish, a customer that signs a contract with a long-term commitment, a customer that commits to 10,000s or maybe 100,000s of devices. And when that contract is signed, only then they are going to share knowledge, and only with this customer. So everything what happens around narrowband IoT and LTE-M, yeah, so let's say the 5G technologies, it happens beyond closed doors.
Yeah, okay.
And everyone is doing it for themselves. Yeah, so Deutsche Telekom, I'm part of Deutsche Telekom, but we are not, unfortunately, not working together with Vodafone and with Orange and with semiconductors. And well, actually, that is what is happening in LoRaWAN, right? Everyone is like, okay, we are competitors, but we all agree that this is the way how to do it, and we don't have that in narrowband IoT and LTM.
It's funny because the value often in IoT is the data that's recorded and what you can do to act upon that data. I read a use case. It was, I think, in Nashville, Tennessee, where they built a solution that they were controlling air quality, and when air quality was low, they would send out a message to different people who had asthma not to leave their house, and they were able to reduce entrance into ERs. So fewer people were going to ERs for respiratory issues by doing this. And two of the problems that were remarked about this solution, which amazing solution. I mean, saves lives. I mean, but it cost a lot of money to do. And because the data models behind it were standardized, you couldn't roll it out to the world. It would have to be kind of done locally and recreated locally in each country. And so if you do work in the United States or in one locality, you can't use that work and then roll it out to Mumbai or another city somewhere else around the world. And so one of the things that I would like to see is all the data to be standardized underneath that. But once again, everybody's pulling in a different direction and no one's really standardizing data. So that issue of like not sharing, everyone's going to have 100% of a smaller pie, or exactly. A big chunk of a smaller pie as a smaller chunk of a bigger pie. It's really too bad.
Yeah, and that's exactly the sad thing, right? I mean, I don't want to make people cry while listening to to me right now, but this is where we are today. Everyone is like, how can we share the pie together? But no one is working on making a bigger pie.
Yeah, really interesting. What about this year was also, we saw a lot of companies either sell off their IoT divisions or close their IoT divisions or move on from it altogether and just say, this isn't our thing. So I think you had, who's the company that makes the chips? The ARM had an IoT group.
Yeah.
And I think they're in the process of selling it off. Google had an IoT group and they closed it down. So there's been a lot of consolidation in the industry, people unable to make money and able to grow things. Do you think this is like the continue, or what do you see as the trends in the
There are many more of these stories in the pipeline for the next few years.
Okay.
Yeah. So we were talking about Google, right? With Google Cloud, and Ericsson selling their platform to another company. I think. What else do we have?
I forget.
I think Vodafone, the CEO, he already left. I think
It's some connectivity company. It's
Yeah.
like a sim connectivity company.
Yeah.
Yep.
So they are trying to sell their IT business. Yeah, and many more are in the pipeline. Yeah, I think they all have the same problem, or we all have the same problem, and that is IT is an exploration market. And in an exploration market, it's actually always important when you are going to launch a new service or launch a new product that you have evidence that the market wants to have it, right? And that you experiment in a very cost-effective and rapid way. Yeah, fail fast, learn fast. And none of us are doing that. Yeah. For example, Google IoT Cloud. I mean, Google is a company with a lot of money. They have a lot of means to invest. So they don't care anymore about doing small experiments, reducing risk before investing a lot in new services, and risking, how do you say that, with the risk to lose a lot of money. Well, actually, if you read the book of Eric Schmidt, what is it called? How Google Works. It's in one of the first chapters where he said that it's all about starting small. Even the idea of Google, like the search engine, started with, in the 90s. Let's just make an Excel file. Yeah, we make a database. We write a lot of keywords, and then next to the keywords, in the second column, we write the websites, the URLs, right? And then we send it to people and see how they react, and then they can use the search function in Excel to find the website that they're looking for. This is how they started with the ID. Yeah, it's a very cheap experiment, a very cheap way to do some market research. Let's make an Excel and let's see how people react. Yeah,
right.
And that's what we are not doing anymore. Currently, it's usually there is like an SVP or a VP that says, "Hey, I have this crazy idea. We should build this platform that can do everything for IoT, and IoT is a growing market because Gartner says that there will be billions of devices. So let's just do it. We don't have to experiment." And then after investing 10 million, 5 million, there will always be someone who says, "Okay, why did we invest so much?"
Yeah.
So it's all about they all have the same problem. The operators, the big cloud guys, we are not experimenting anymore. We are just investing a lot in new initiatives, in new projects, new platforms, and waste a lot of money and resources.
Yeah, I think everyone's looking for growth.
Yeah,
and they're looking for big growth opportunities, and if they don't hit it, then they just kind of move on.
Yeah.
It's interesting because I think IoT has so potential. I mean, if you work in the industry and you walk around, you see ideas for different devices and applications everywhere.
Yeah.
But nothing seems to be there. Doesn't seem to be too much happening. And even it's funny, you were talking about hot water heater for my house, and I actually talked to the company who makes my hot water heater, and they were like, not interested. And I kind of pitched them on the same idea, and I'm like, how about just a sensor that detects humidity behind your machine? So if there's any kind of humidity, it sends you an alert. And I'm like, you guys could save tons of money every year. Nope, not interested.
Yeah.
Good. So what about scalability? You talked about scaling these things. There's scaling these things to the notion, one of the things they were talking about early on when the analysts were looking at this market is billions, hundreds of billions of devices, trillions of devices. I don't think we even understand how to get all these really connected to the cloud. Is that even like feasible today?
I really have no clue, to be honest. I mean, we haven't we haven't seen it happening yet, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I have no clue. I mean, there are some use cases that we never called IoT before, and today we are calling it IoT, right? So the POS systems in the retail industry.
That's true.
And I mean, I don't have to tell you that the POS systems are being used a lot all over the world, and most of the IoT use cases will be similar. Very low data volumes, very small messages. So yeah, I think from a cloud perspective, the technologies are ready for it. It's just what I said in the beginning, not from the human perspective.
Not from the
Yeah,
human.
yeah,
It was really
yeah.
interesting. Well, but that resistance to change. I mean, my wife doesn't want any IoT in the devices because I used to work in the industry, and she doesn't trust the security on the devices. She's really concerned about security. How about you? Is your house stuffed with IoT devices? Are you concerned about security, or where do you stand on that?
Well, I have to admit that I don't have any IoT devices at all in my house. I try
Okay.
to I try to keep things as simple as possible, as long as possible. That's
Yeah.
who I am. But I recently ordered. We were talking about our wives. My wife very often loses her keys.
Ooh,
Yeah.
yeah.
So
I do that too.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I ordered this tag, this clip for her, which she can how do you say that?
Yeah.
I don't know the English word, but you know what I mean, right?
It's an AirTag. Apple calls it an AirTag. I don't know if you got an Apple
No, no,
one.
it's not an Apple one. It's another one, but it's similar. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
And my daughter, she's in the last year of preschool, and here in the
Hmm.
Netherlands, um, you can when you are in the last year of preschool, you go camping for 1 week with the class, and they're not allowed to bring their smartphones with them because
Right.
everyone of that age has a smartphone these days. So I ordered this smart bracelet from the company Lemon in Berlin. It's actually like primary, it's a fashion item, but secondary, it has like something with which you can trigger like an alert, and then it will send a
Yeah.
message with the location to your friends and family. So I like in my personal life, IoT is just about to happen. And
It's just entering in there.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, and I have to admit that I am since I bought this, I ordered this device. I am worried about security, but then I admit that um, the fact or the part where what I'm worried about is that she uses a public Wi-Fi networks on a smartphone, right? So
Yeah.
someone can hack the smartphone and maybe change the settings in the app of the smart bracelet. But that also proves that security issues are not new for IoT.
Oh. And they're not getting addressed either.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you know the history of the Mirai botnet attack?
No,
Attack.
no.
So the Mirai botnet attack almost brought down the world's internet. It brought it down in a few countries, and it was an IoT attack. Basically, closed caption television cameras all had this flaw in them, and they were all taken over, and they were just basically did a massive DDoS attack using the cameras, and it's loaded up so much traffic on the world network that it almost brought down the world network. And so the tool used to create that virus is something you can go on the dark web and download. So my 14-year-old kid could theoretically create the bug that takes down
Yeah,
the worldwide internet, and we're still seeing this same flaw on all these systems. So no one's done anything to address this.
yeah,
So it's a little scary.
yeah.
Um, we say IoT should be the Internet of Things, not the Internet of Threats. So
It
really
is
good.
true. I mean, I understand that. So even though we already have security problems that we are not addressing or not
Yeah,
fixing yet for 20 or 30 years,
yeah,
even though I still understand that with the potential of billions of more connected devices to the internet, there will be more threats.
yeah.
So yeah, we need to be aware. We need to take those threats into account. But it's very complex, right? It's for each type of use case. It's the security needs to be handled very different. In some cases, you also need to secure the physical device itself and not only the data that travels from A to B. So it's yeah, complex.
No, it is. It is very complex. And what's going to be interesting is that at some point we're going to get to a point where these devices are not only going to share information with servers, but with other devices on parallel. And then your security, your landscape changes dramatically and becomes even more complex. Do you have any predictions for 2023? Because we were talking about IoT in 2023. What do you think is going to happen? Do you think it's going to be a good year for IoT?
Yeah. I mean, in 22, we already saw that um, the in 21 we had this big problem with chip shortage, right? So
Okay.
so those few companies that wanted to scale with IoT were facing this problem with chip shortage. I didn't see that anymore, especially in the second half of since the second half of this year. So one of my predictions is what I said before. We will see more companies selling their IT business, more
Yeah.
consolidation, especially big, especially large companies.
Yeah.
That's one prediction, and I think that um, uh, we will hear less about satellite IoT after Mobile World Congress. Maybe we will get a peak at Mobile World Congress. Everyone will jump on the hype and and say, "Hey, we are working together with this satellite IoT connectivity provider." But after that, it will be very quiet. That's one prediction, and I think we will see a lot of growth in. It's very boring, but it is still growth. It's utility and water
Yeah.
metering. I see a lot of tenders happening there. Smart waste management, same story. A lot of growth since the second half of this year. And I think Matter with the smart home protocol, they are also unlocking some growth in that area. Yeah.
That's interesting. Well, it's going to be interesting to watch this industry play out. I think smart metering is obvious. I mean, water is such a crucial resource.
Yeah.
And IoT can do amazing things with water. I mean, we can, if you look at a country like Brazil, something like 30% of their water is lost as it's being distributed. So if you wire up your network and you're tracking that data, you can prevent those losses, and that can change people's lives. So it really is. And there's a lot of things like that IoT can do a lot of good. The UN's talked about this. It's related to sustainability goals, but it would be good to actually hit those goals and not just create a lot more plastic junk.
But that's a trick, right? You just said it. I think it's a very important topic because, and that's also what I really like about IoT. The thing that I like about IoT is that we don't know yet what IoT can do. We don't know how it looks like when you use the full potential of IoT. Because did you ever imagine that players on the World Cup will play with a ball, with a football, with sensors in it and a tracking system in it? That's amazing, right?
Yeah, I saw that. That is really freaking cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And for example, I never expected that that there are companies who are putting trackers in coffins, coffins to transport diseased people from
Yeah.
country A to country B. So that was a use case that really surprised me, like the connected football, and like that there will be many more use cases that we cannot think of today, but they are there. And I think the trick to scale IoT, to grow IoT, is to make the concept of making things connected more mainstream. Because today, the most people around us, they don't know yet about that concept. And I think these stories, like the World Cup football, these stories are very helpful. If people write about these stories and if people talk about these stories, then more business owners will think about, hey, what if I connect, I don't know, my table? What if I connect my chair?
Well, I think, it's just really complicated stuff. I mean, it's hard to have a conversation about this without getting into all the protocols and all the other stuff. But just it's not stuff that you can just pick up and use. If you go sign up for Canva as a SaaS,
Yeah.
within a few minutes you can figure out how to use it and you can start generating value. IoT if you really want to do it as a company, you've got a minimum couple year investment. It's a CapEx expense. You need a cross-organizational team focus on this. You need someone from HR, like you were saying, if you're really thinking far enough ahead. It's really, there's a lot of stuff that could go wrong when you're trying to move that many pieces concurrently. And until we get to the point where it's more about the business case and and more understood, because, you know, I worked in the industry for a while. I consider I only know a fraction of all there is to know about IoT. It's still an enigmatic market.
Why did you leave the IoT market?
Just I'm someone who gets happy feet. The grass is always greener, so I always like to move on and try new challenges and learn about new things. So I'm someone who just likes to learn all the time. So I'd probably be fine in a prison cell with a book, as long as it was a good book.
I have a strong feeling that you will come back.
You have a strong feeling. All right. Well, listen. We'll finish on that note. First of all, let me be the first to wish you happy holiday season. I wish you the best 2023.
Thank you very much. Likewise.
And since you
Sorry, go ahead.
Live in Holland, dank u wel.
Graag gedaan. It was my pleasure to be here. Thanks a lot, Steve. And I wish you a very happy holiday season too.
Listen, Afzal, thank you, and have a great rest of your day. Bye-bye.
Thanks, same to you. Bye-bye.
Okay. Oh, so interesting. It's such an interesting market. It's and it's really funny because Afzal wrote something really funny. That was when I decided I was going to invite him on. But he was like, everybody I work with in the IoT industry knows everything about what's going to happen. They're all geniuses. And he was kind of making fun of them because it's an industry full of like a lot of people are incredibly intelligent, incredibly skilled, most of them many successful. But it's true, they've all got a really strong opinion about things, and it's kind of like religion, like being Catholic or Protestant or Muslim. You're really stuck to it, and you can't really argue with them or discuss anything with them. They believe what they're going to believe, and that's all they believe. And typically what they believe says more about them than it does about the thing. It's really funny. Anyhow, we'll see what happens in IoT. I think just one other example of interesting applications that are coming down the pike. Lighting for a city represents, electricity for lighting represents 1/4 of the average city's budget. So if you can use smart lighting to reduce that, that's important savings. And so before they were building whole smaller lights with everything integrated with your IoT integrated, and now they just have a little thing you can snap onto your light, turn any light into a smart light. So there's so many interesting things happens in the industry, but it sure is taking a long time. With that, I wish everyone a super end of 2022. Enjoy yourself. Enjoy your time with your family. We'll be back in 2023. I think our first show will be on January 10th, because we need to give people time to get back to work and get settled in and all those things. Thank you so much. Wonderful 2022 and happy holidays. Oh, there's our end screen. Stay tuned in 2023. More on SaaS and technology. Bye-bye.